How many of us are looking ultimately to have more leisure in life, to maybe even retire, to have the quality of life where we are doing what we want, when we want, with who we want, because we want to, not because we have to make a living? Would that be true for most people? Would that be true for you? I know it's true for me. And here's the piece about that is kind of disturbing. And that is, given the strategies that I've been exposed to for most of my life, I'm not sure it's possible if I keep using those same strategies. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. So my mentors, my parents, my family, my teachers, gave me some advice. They said, go to school, get a good job, work hard in that job, and they'll retire you out of that job, and then you can spend the rest of your golden years enjoying what you want, doing what's called retirement. And I thought that was pretty good. I didn't know anything different. And so I did that path, and now I'm in my golden years. And I just got to say, if a young person came to me today and asked me for some advice, how to have some leisure in life, how to have time, how to have the financial resources and the ability to do what they want when they want, I would not give them that advice. And I'm not sure that you would either. Because given the state of the world today, that's not really a valid path for most of us most of the time. Let's look at these parts of that advice. First of all, going to school. When I was a young man, going to school, meaning college, university, and on, it was reasonably priced. I can't say that that's true today. It's very expensive. The cost of an advanced education's gone through the roof. And so what most young people have to do today is they have to take out this thing called debt, student loans, either the parents, the family, or the individuals. And unfortunately, when they graduate, unless they're in some specific careers, when they graduate, it's likely that they're going to have a difficult time finding work that they were trained for. So you've got a double whammy here. You've got a chunk of debt that must be paid, and you've got the possibility of unemployment or misemployment. So that doesn't seem like good advice. The other part of that advice package was work for that company for a while, maybe 40 years, and then they'll retire you. Well, a lot of the companies now are cutting way back on their retirement programs, and there's a good number of companies that aren't even around in 40 years. The economic landscape has shifted. It's changed. Now, if you're just starting out, or whether you're at the other end of that journey, whether you don't have a lot of money, you want to get some money, you want to save some money, you want to accumulate some money, or if you've got a chunk of money and you want to preserve it and perhaps live on it, benefit from it, I've got some other news for you that may not be so pleasant. You see, in the old days, and I'm just talking about when I was a younger man, those old days, it was possible to put a chunk of money in the bank and live off the interest, or stocks and bonds and live off those investments. Today, that's disappearing rapidly, unfortunately. Now, the economy is local, it's very local. My economy is me and my family, my community, the country where I live. But the global economy influences the local economy, wouldn't you agree? Like, if the rest of the world is having a hard time, it's going to impact wherever we live. Well, right now, the rest of the world is not looking so pleasant. If you just check the economic news, and I'm not assuming that anybody does this, but I do, the stock markets around the world are in bad shape. China is down 40%. Double digits in Europe, Japan, United States, and most of the other developed countries. Stock markets are crashing. And you might say, well, they go up, they go down, and it's true, they do. And nobody can predict when, big crashes of 50% or more are going to happen. They do happen. But let's look at the other dynamics of this. And I don't want to give you abstractions. I'm going to give you some facts, but then I want to tell you why this is important to you, your very local economy. So it's an open secret that the governments are deep in debt, right? Governments are way over their head in debt. And a lot of individuals are way over their head in debt. As a matter of fact, the world economy, all the transactions in the world is about $75 trillion a year. But guess how much the world debt is? It's about 3 times that. It's about $200 trillion. Folks, I don't know how to make that work. I don't know how that will ever be paid off. That kind of debt. It's, if you've got an answer, I'm sure you could run for an office on that. But there's no reasonable way that we can see that that debt will be paid off. However, there are implications. See, this is not all academic. the interest on that debt will be paid. But it'll be paid by you and your children and your grandchildren. So there's a huge drag on your ability to accumulate money. But compounding that, the taxes, right? Compounding that is the fact that the interest rates worldwide have gone from a reasonable amount down to a very, very, very small amount, and now they're going negative. Negative. Think about that for a minute. Let's say you have $100,000 in the bank. And you say, well, that'll supplement my living. I can live on that. At 8%, that'll be about $8,000 a year. I could maybe not live on that fully, but that'd help a lot, right? $8,000. Well, in America right now, I believe you can get about 1/4% in a typical savings account. Now, think about that for a minute. $100,000 in the bank, and probably for a number of us, it takes a while to get $100,000 in one place at one time. At 1%, you would make $1,000 a year. At 1/4%, you're going to make $250 a year. Now, there's 365 days in a year. And if you can live on less than $1 a day, tell me how you do it. So if you're thinking, I'll accumulate some money and have this thing called retirement, think again. Now you may go, well, I'm not just counting on that, I've got a pension. Right, you've got a pension. But the truth is, pensions are only as good as the party that guarantees it, the party that backs it. So if you have a private pension from a private employer, and they put a big chunk of money in there, and they're counting on 8% a year to fund your retirement pension, but they're not getting 8%, how are they going to pay you? And if you have a government pension, and the government bonds now, I think it's 40% of the government bonds in the developed world now are in negative interest-bearing bonds. You might go, what does that mean, Michael Jude? Well, let me tell you what that means. If you put your money in bonds, a government bond, they are guaranteeing you that you will get less money back when you redeem that bond than when you bought it. Well, think about that for a minute. I'm going to give you $100,000 and you're going to guarantee you'll give me back $99,000 some dollars? What's wrong with that picture? So, folks, we could go into a lot of detail about these negative interest rates and these debt loads, and that's not the important thing. The important thing is for you to be aware that the economy of the world has fundamentally shifted from where it was even a week ago, a month ago, a year ago, and certainly a decade ago. This is not your father's or grandfather's economy. The old rules, the old strategies will no longer keep you safe or help you prosper in this new economy. So that example of go to school, get a job, retire you, the example of accumulate a nest egg and invest it, sorry, they may not work, or they may not work well for you. Let's look at some of the other challenges that are happening today. Anybody look at the price of housing lately? Especially if you're a young person trying to get a start? Do you think it's possible for the average person in most Western countries to buy a house on an average income? Probably not. What about putting your children through school? What about this thing called the war on cash? You may go, wait a minute, what are you talking about, the war on cash? I know about the war on poverty, I know about the war on drugs. What's this thing called the war on cash? Well, watch the headlines, because this is more and more popular. They're just ramping this thing up. The war on cash. What does that mean? Well, if I am offering you negative interest rates on your money, let's say a bank. Let's say you go to a local bank and you've got $1,000 you want to put in, and they say, great, we'll take your money, but we're only going to credit you $990 for your $1,000 you've given us. It's a negative interest rate. It's a tax on putting your money in the bank. It's a war on cash. Let me explain another couple pieces, and I'll explain what that means. They're lobbying heavily to get rid of the 500-euro note. They just want it gone. The $100 US dollar bill, want it gone. Now, why would they want that? Well, the news says it's a war on terrorism and illegal, activities, because, gosh, if you've got $1 million, that weighs a couple of pounds and you can fit it in a briefcase, and we want to make it uncomfortable. We're going to make it a lot heavier and a lot bigger. That's going to cut down on crime and terrorism. Now, folks, I don't know about you, but I don't. That doesn't track for me somehow. If I'm a sophisticated criminal or a terrorist, I'm moving millions of dollars through the banks. I'm not moving it through suitcases. And these enterprises are some of the largest dollar enterprises on the planet. It's not a bunch of people running around that don't know what they're doing. But there is a war on cash. And the reason there's a war on cash, I say, is because the government needs you to get your money off the street and into the banks because they're dead broke. And they need your money, and they're going to make it painful for you to have cash. Now, just watch the news for the next couple of weeks, couple of months, and just see if that rolls out. Now look, my crystal ball's probably as dusty as yours, but I follow this stuff, and I can tell you with some degree of certainty what's coming. I can't tell you the date, I can't tell you the color or what it looks like, but this is what's coming. And I'm not telling this to you just for the bad news. I'm actually quite an optimistic person in some ways. But I want you to be prepared for what's coming. Because when these economic shifts happen, there are losers and there are winners. And if you don't have a grasp on what's coming and you don't understand how it works, and you don't have a strategy, you could very easily become one of the economic losers. There was another Great Depression about 80 years ago. It's called the Great Depression in the 1930s. Uncannily similar to today. Uncannily similar. The governments of the world had similar economic policies. They actually instituted negative interest rates. They had massive amounts of debt. They were printing currency like it was going out of style and bloating the bureaucracies. And you probably know the stories of what happened. Millions and millions and millions of people were destitute. They lost their homes, they lost their income, families were shattered. It was hard times. And some people say we were lucky we had a big war to get us out of it. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't consider any kind of a war good news. But I do want to give you some hope, because during that last depression, guess what? The foundations for wealth were laid by those that had the insight and a strategy and a vehicle to create wealth for themselves. Now you might think, how is that possible? Well, like I said, in every economic period, there are winners and losers. Right? One person's crisis is another person's opportunity. And if you're properly positioned as these economic storms come sweeping through, you can actually prosper and thrive during the hard economic times. So let's look at some vehicles that are currently available, and then let's look at the vehicles that will help you get through these hard times that are coming. So typically when people think about investing or generating wealth, first thing I think about is work. I'll get a job, or I'll work harder if I have a job. I don't know about you, but most people I know are already working pretty hard. It's not like they can work more. They might get a better paying job, but what I know too is when most people get a better paying job, typically what happens is their expenses go up to match that job. They get better food, they get better clothes, maybe better transport, possibly a better living situation. So it's hard to save money working more or working at a better job. So people turn toward a couple of other things. They turn toward the share market, the stocks, bonds. Today, I would say that's a fairly risky investment. Look, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not here to give you specific financial advice. But with the stock markets around the world crashing, I wouldn't be putting money in a aggressive way right now, hoping that it goes up. If you want to do what's called shorting the market, maybe that's a good strategy. I'm not here to discuss the share markets in detail. But I would say I would use extreme caution if you're looking at buying shares or bonds right now. What are some other traditional investments people have? Well, real estate. That's a lot of people's wealth is tied up in their real estate, right? They live in their wealth. They buy a home or property and they watch it go up in value and they figure, well, I'll retire on that one day. But when I look at the cost of a home and how much it's inflated in the last few years, and I see how the average person is priced out of that market, suddenly those asset values look awfully high. And what I know is there's something in finance called reversion to the mean. And what that means is prices go up and prices go down, but they always sort of come back to the center for the most part. So if asset prices are real high right now, the odds are they're going to get back to where an average person can afford an average house, right? If prices are too inexpensive, they'll go up. You can look at how rents are. If you can buy a house and rent it and sort of cover the mortgage and make a little bit of profit, that's sort of where the mean is. That's where the average is. If you have to buy a house and you rent it and the rent doesn't even begin to cover the mortgage debt, that's probably an expensive investment house. Okay? Again, this isn't a seminar on real estate. Another conversation, another time. But I just want to point out that real estate, for a lot of people, is a pretty sound investment. However, what if your real estate gets cut by 20% in the next 2, 3, 4, 6 months? What if it gets cut by 50%, the value of that real estate? What if it becomes very, very, very hard to sell? Because like in the last recession and in the last depression, asset values like stocks and bonds and real estate plummeted, and they stayed low for a long time. Look, again, my crystal ball, I can't say next week at 2 o'clock all this is going to happen, but I can tell you the headwinds are there. And what I know is when I see a storm coming, when I see the clouds gathering, the wind picks up, I go around and shut the windows, close the doors, and pick up stuff out of the yard. Because it's coming. Will it arrive in an hour or 10 minutes? I don't know, but I see it coming. Let's look at some other things people have. People say, well, private equity. Now that's a fancy word for investing in private businesses, not the big public share markets. You may own your own business. You may have a shop. Anybody heard of a big chain locally called Dick Smith's? Yeah, big chain, big shops. They, I understand, are in bankruptcy. Lots of companies that have traditional businesses are shuttering because their economic time is come and gone. Traditional retail, I was recently talking to a store owner, went into a stop. Beautiful place. He had walls and walls of inventory. It was gorgeous. He was kind of an outdoor sporting goods place. Wonderful stuff. I said, wow, this looks really great. How's business? He said, I don't know if I'll make it through the year. Now, he's in a tourist area where there's lots of people coming through. I said, really? Looks like you're doing well. He said, well, here's the truth. Lots of people come in and they finger the merchandise and they check it out and they try it on and then they go, and I don't even know if they make it out of the parking lot because they go online and they find it cheaper and they buy it. He said, I'm a free showroom for the online stores. Anybody here buy anything online recently? Yeah, I know I do too. More and more every year. So that kind of traditional business is not looking necessarily good. There will always be specialty stores and, buy shoes. Look, I want to try them on. But a lot of other things I'll just buy online. Let's look at service businesses. Let's say that you're an accountant or a lawyer or car wash or a bank teller or a clerk somewhere. There's lots and lots of service jobs, restaurant, fast food, hospitality. Folks, I got to share some bad news. Those jobs may not be around very long. They certainly won't be around in the form they are today. Little trip through the past, this thing called a job, is relatively new in human history. It's only a couple hundred years old. Back in the Industrial Revolution is when the job was created. And we're moving way beyond the Industrial Revolution. We're into the information age. Jobs for our societies are disappearing. And they're disappearing because of this thing called automation and globalization and outsourcing. I'll give you some quick examples. How many of you used to go to a bank and you'd walk in and there's all these people behind the booths and they're tellers and they're all smiling and happy and they'll take your money and give you a receipt and do all the stuff you needed done. But how many of us go into the bank these days? How many of us just stand outside with this piece of plastic and hit the robot and out comes the money, or they take a deposit? Right? How many of us actually have seen supermarkets? You go in a supermarket. And there used to be all these rows of people that had these old registers, and then they moved up to these robots called scanners. They no longer push the buttons. Yeah, that's exciting. But now, guess what? Some stores, there are as many of these other robots called self-service scanners as there are checkers. And it's often faster just to do it yourself. You go through the robot and out you go. Put in your plastic and give them your cash and you're out the door faster. And on and on. I could give you example after example after example. There are hotels that have no people. You check in, everything's done by robots. There are restaurants now. You go in, it's all robotic. Why hire people when these robots don't get sick? No offense, ladies, they don't get pregnant. They don't have emotional problems, guys. They don't have the hangovers. They don't retire. They don't need, they're 365. They upgrade them online. Just let them upgrade, right? Robotics and outsourcing are eating middle-class jobs. So if you're thinking that, oh yeah, I'll just accumulate money as we go along and I'll have my life, I'll have my golden years. These strategies are probably not going to get you where you want to go. It's unfortunate because most of us were trained in these strategies. So private equity, you want to invest in a business, make very, very, very sure that that business will be around 20 years from now, much less 30 years. And if you're really in it for the long haul, good luck on 50 years. If you look at the Fortune 500 and the big industrial average, Dow industrial average, a good chunk, over half those companies, are no longer around from 30, 40, 50 years ago. They're gone. They just don't exist anymore. These are big, big, big world-class companies. So I'm just trying to impress you that things are changing, and they're changing rapidly, and it will not look the same in the future as it did in the past. So you go, Michael Jude, well, that's all interesting, but so what? Well, so what is that there are strategies that you and I can access that will help us thrive in this new economy. Ways that we can create wealth, but even more importantly, ways that we can create leisure time for ourselves. Because how many of us want to work our way through life as a wage slave and end up broke and still working? The industrial concept of retirement no longer fits. It's not get a job in 40 years and they'll retire you. Sorry, it's just not real anymore for most of us, most of the time. So what are you going to do? What are the options? Well, play the lottery. That's a joke, right? You can play the lottery. You can hope somebody dies and leaves you a lot of money. That's another joke for most of us. Maybe not a great joke, but anyway. You can work harder. Again, I talked about it. Most of us are already working hard. You can retrain for a job, but what are you going to retrain for? You know, I don't know about you. I started out as a car mechanic. I know as a car mechanic, I couldn't become a computer programmer. And I don't even know about computer programming. You know, computers program the program now. I mean, look, if your crystal ball is better than mine, maybe you can figure out a good job. But I'm suggesting that maybe a job is not the way to go. The way to go is to be a business owner, but a special kind of business, not just any business. When I say business owner, most people think, well, I'll open a shop, or I'll open a franchise. But those are old models. Why would you open a shop when, like I told you earlier, the guy's running a free showroom for the online retailers, right? Or if you have a service business, like maybe you want to do cosmetics or hospitality, I don't know how you're going to get wealthy and leisure time doing that. That's kind of called owning your own job. You own the business, but you actually own your own job, right? If you want the money and the free time and the leisure to go with it, you have to have a special kind of business, the kind of business where you can leverage yourself. You can actually create a business that will operate independently of you and create cash income and give you the time you need to enjoy that cash. And you might think, wow, that sounds like a dream. That sounds like one of those guys on the internet, like Google or Facebook. I bet you they're rich and they got lots of time. Well, they do have lots of money. I don't know if they have a lot of time, but they figured out a way to use this new economy and the new technology to create wealth for themselves. But I don't know about you. I'm not the Google guy and I'm not the Facebook guy. You probably aren't either. But what we do have is something called our capital base, and our capital base in this case is our contact base, our reputation. We can do something called reputation marketing. There's a way for us to monetize what we already have and what we already do, and to make a business for ourselves that distributes valuable goods and services to people that want them, and we're able to monetize that in a way that allows us to create a life that we love. It gives us the time and the income to enjoy life as we should. And this business was sort of created about 50, 60 years ago called network marketing. And network marketing is a huge industry now. It's a new industry, and it's just getting started, and you have the chance to be at the front of this worldwide boom. And it's getting bigger and bigger, and it's accelerating because of these economic trends I've been talking about. And while I'll claim my crystal ball is not 100% clear, I can see that this is the way of the future. Now, I'm not going to give you a lot of details about network marketing. I am going to encourage you to do your own research, though, to do some due diligence, and look at how you can create wealth for yourself. Wealth that can be for the rest of your life and perhaps intergenerational. In other words, it can pass on to your children, your grandchildren, or to your favorite charity. Wealth that gives you the lifestyle freedom to enjoy it. And one of the benefits that Ben Franklin, who is an old philosopher from America many, many years ago, he said, the best investment of all is the 6 inches between your ears. He said, that's the best investment because nobody can take it away from you and it grows through the rest of your life. When you get education, quality education, you can leverage that education into something magnificent in the world. And one of the beautiful things about the network marketing industry is it's a continuous education model. It's a lifetime education model. And unlike these expensive degree programs, and I'm not against college, university, and degrees, but unlike those, you don't pay a lot of money to get this education. It's called earn while you learn. You actually earn while you're learning. So if you're a young person listening to this message, you want to think twice about shelling out a lot of money, going deep into debt to get an education versus being educated while you're making money, while you're building your business. So that at the end of 4 years, you actually have a business you own and you have an income, as opposed to a big debt and looking around for a way to pay it off. Perhaps the biggest thing, the most important thing to me about network marketing, though, and I want to leave you with this thought, is who you have to become successful in this business. Now see, here's one thing I know. Everyone that I personally know has all the ingredients and qualities they need to succeed. It takes two things, really. It takes a dream, and it takes a willingness to work for that dream. Most people I know do have a dream. For a lot of us, it's maybe starts with just getting by, paying the bills, and that's okay. I know when I was younger, I had pretty outrageous dreams. And if I scratch the surface, you know what, I can still find some of those outrageous dreams, and I bet you can too. But after a few gray hairs and a few disappointments in the world, those dreams get kind of shut down. But what I know is that's the human spirit at work. Those ambitious, beautiful dreams of young people. And whether you're a young person or an older person feeling young, those dreams are where the joy is in life. And I encourage you to find a vehicle that will let you live that dream. And what I know from personal experience is that network marketing is the vehicle that will allow you to live that dream. So most people have the dream, and most people are already hardworking. What I also know is that when people get something they really want, they get passionate, they'll really work for it. Because a wise man told me once, he said, you know, the day you start doing what you love is the last day you'll ever work. And so I haven't worked for quite a long time. I love what I do. I no longer have to work for the money. And that's exciting. I would love nothing more than for you to be able to say, I do what I do because I love it, my money's handled, I'm done doing it for the money, and I do it because I love it. See, I believe that's the promise of the human experience. That's what's possible for all of us. And if that excites you, I'm going to encourage you to do some due diligence. That's a business term for investigation. I'm going to invite you to investigate this thing called network marketing, to take a look at what it really is and what it can offer you. How it can offer you in this changing economy a platform of stability, a way to build a community and a distribution channel that no matter what comes, whether it's a tornado, a tsunami, or an earthquake, no matter what comes, you will have a bedrock of economic and relationship security that will last your life and possibly beyond. So with that, I want to leave you with an invitation to take action now. Because, I don't know about you, but looking back, I know that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, so I could enjoy the shade of that tree today. But if I didn't plant that tree 20 years ago, I'd say plant it now. Invest now. The best investment you can make is in you. And that's the only one, as Benjamin Franklin said, they can't take away from you. So I want to thank you for your attention, and may you have all the success that you deserve.